Did you ever wonder where the most scandalous secrets of the past were whispered? Not in gilded palaces or hushed libraries, but in the smoky depths of alehouses and taverns, places where the line between pleasure and peril blurred with every tankard poured. Let's dive into a world of illicit encounters, unexpected desires, and the potent brew that fueled them all: alcohol. Imagine a scene: Ashton, England, 1634. Rain lashes against the windows of the Tankerfields alehouse, a haven for weary travelers and restless souls. A young woman, finds herself unexpectedly drawn into a conversation with Henry Kenyon, a rival for the affections of a local gentleman. "At last they came by us," she recounts, "and I moved to stay to drink with me, which she did. It wasn't just a friendly chat, it was a calculated maneuver, a dance of attraction played out amidst the clatter of mugs and the murmur of voices. This wasn't an isolated incident." Across the channel in Renaissance Florence, young homosexuals sought refuge in the clandestine corners of taverns like the Bucco and Sant' Andrea, places where identities were fluid and desires ran wild. Let's talk about Nicholas Moore, an apprentice in Essex who, driven by a potent mix of boredom and temptation, repeatedly returned to the local alehouse. The keeper's wife, with a knowing glance, urged him to come back when her husband was absent. It wasn't a romantic invitation, not exactly. It was an acknowledgement of a deeper, more primal need, the lure of a dark corner, a fleeting encounter, a moment of transgression. But it wasn't just about fleeting encounters. The alehouses were hubs of courtship, a bizarre and often uncomfortable arena where young men and women navigated the complexities of attraction. Robert Wace's Arthurian tales paint a vivid picture. King Vortigern, captivated by the fair Rowena, finds himself utterly enthralled after she presents him with a cup of ale. "Wassail, Lord King," she proclaims, and with that single word he's lost to her charms. The story echoes through the centuries, appearing in Layman's Chronicles and later in Giambattista Basil's Pentamerone, where a king falls for Renzala, the peasant girl who serves him wine, claiming the vessel carries more love than liquid. And then there's Pierre de Ronsard, who describes the act of receiving a cup of wine as a fairy, transporting the recipient's heart into the giver's. It's a poetic sentiment, but it speaks to a fundamental truth: alcohol could be a catalyst, a facilitator of desire, a temporary suspension of inhibitions. Now let's be honest, alehouses weren't just for polite conversation and romantic gestures. For some, particularly young men, they offered a darker, more dangerous allure. Prostitutes frequently frequented these establishments, their presence adding another layer of complexity to the already volatile atmosphere. Nicholas Moore wasn't just seeking companionship, he was drawn to the possibility of something illicit, something forbidden, and it wasn't just England. In 1610, during a witch trial in Aix, the defendant described a horrifying banquet. Sometimes they ate the tender flesh of little children who had been slain and roasted at some synagogue, and sometimes babes were brought there, yet alive, whom the witches had kidnapped from their homes if opportunity offered. And yes, the witches drank Malmsey wine, a potent vintage known for its stimulating properties, fueling their dark rituals. It's a disturbing image, a chilling reminder of the intersection of alcohol, violence, and the occult. Fast forward to 1447 in Florence, where Giovanna called Caterina was condemned for practicing sorcery. Her method: distilling water from the skulls of dead men and mixing it with wine to induce lust in her victim, Giovanni Saraceni. A bizarre concoction, certainly, but it highlights a recurring theme: the belief that alcohol could be used to manipulate desire, to compel someone to act against their will. The authorities weren't blind to these dangers. In the 16th century, William Lambarde, an English magistrate, lamented the role of alehouses in fostering youth's pleasures and fulfill their lusts. Some even proposed raising the minimum age for entering these establishments to 25. But attempts to control the drinking culture were largely futile. In 1639, the Vice-Chancellor of Oxford University took drastic measures, suppressing 200 alehouses in the town, only to find that the students simply relocated to more discreet venues. Consider Samuel Ward, a Cambridge student who preached against drunkenness while simultaneously indulging in it. His diary entries reveal a stark contradiction, a glimpse into the hypocrisy of the era. The students, fueled by ale and a rebellious spirit, often clashed with authority, mocking those who attempted to enforce regulations. They believed they had a right to indulge in drinking contests and get drunk, a defiance born from their marginalized status as unmarried, poor, and mobile. The connection between alehouses and prostitution wasn't merely coincidental. Both spaces offered a refuge for those seeking escape, a place to shed their inhibitions and indulge in desires that were often suppressed in polite society. As Robert Greene observed, both the brothel and the tavern were unordered, anarchic space where customers felt a degree of freedom to act without restraint. Let's not forget the role of keepers. They weren't just serving drinks, they were curators of atmosphere, procuring dancing bears, jugglers, and minstrels to lure patrons into their establishments. They were, in essence, entertainers, and their establishments became magnets for young people seeking amusement and perhaps something more. And then there's the question of women. Were they truly absent from the world of alehouses and taverns? The evidence suggests otherwise. The young woman we met in Ashton, was actively engaging in courtship within these spaces, but the narrative is complicated. While English women generally faced greater restrictions than their counterparts on the continent, they still ventured into these male-dominated environments, seeking companionship, entertainment, or even a clandestine encounter. The absence of women in the drinking establishments of France and Italy remains a puzzling anomaly, a question that deserves further investigation. Consider the story of Aladiel, the Sultan's daughter, who was seduced by Pericone de Visalgo through the strategic offering of wine. It wasn't just a beverage, it was a tool, a means of lowering her defenses and opening her to desire. And then there's the Ballad of the Tailor and the Beggar Wench, a cautionary tale of a man who, after indulging in wine, found himself robbed and abandoned. The relationship between alcohol and sexual encounters wasn't always straightforward. It could be a catalyst for love, a facilitator of desire, or a tool of manipulation. It could lead to moments of ecstasy and connection, or to acts of betrayal and violence. In the smoky depths of the alehouse, the boundaries between pleasure and peril blurred, and the consequences of indulgence could be both exhilarating and devastating. So, the next time you raise a glass, consider the long and complex history of alcohol, its intoxicating power, and its enduring connection to the human desire for connection, for pleasure, and for transgression. But tell me this, if you could step back in time and witness a single night in an alehouse, what would you hope to see? Would it be a scene of joyous camaraderie, a whirlwind of passionate encounters, or something far darker and more unsettling?